Hi guys, my name is Tony Chang. I am a second year medical student and I am here because I spent some time trying to figure out what works best for me in medical school and what works best for my study habits, and I just wanted to share with you guys some of the things that I've been using in medical school and some of the things that have been helping me. Now, I don't want to come across as one of those students who say like you need to use this and you need to use that. I just want to share with you guys some of the things that I've been using, some of the things that really helped me get through the first year of medical school and really helped me get through my pre-clinicals, which ends really soon. I'm now again in November and my pre-clinicals end in January, and yeah, these are a few things that kind of helped me get from that first month, that first week of medical school up until this point. Now, a few of these things are pretty medical school specific, and there's a couple of things that just help me feel more productive. And so the point of this video isn't to go over the textbooks that I use or the resources that I use for studying. The point of this is to talk about some of the things that help me feel more productive as I'm going through medical school, and things that I really think helped out in getting used to sort of what medical school expects of a student. Again, figure out what works best for you. You don't have to use all these things. These are just things that helped me, but if you found that one of these things might be helpful, then I've done my job. So yeah, let's just get into it. Now, first things first is something that I'm sure all of you have seen at this point. This is a very popular item. I got this during my first year. If you guys don't know what this is a little clicker device. I think it was designed initially to be something that you use for gaming on the go, but it has very quickly evolved into something that a lot of medical students use for their flashcards. Now, if you're like most medical students, and not only medical students, but a lot of people use this, but I think the medical student community has really taken a like to this app called Anki. Anki is this app that was designed to make digital flashcards that you can use on your computer, but also you can download the app on your mobile devices. As of right now, the desktop version of Anki is available on desktop, so you can use it on your computers for free. You just have to look for it and download it. But the mobile versions, I actually purchased the mobile version on my phone. I think it was going for 25 bucks around that time. But anyway, I use Anki flashcards because, as you're going to learn, there's a lot to memorize, and using those flashcards helps with repetition and recalling information that you learned from before. A lot of my classmates use Anki. The reason I bring that up is because a lot of my classmates, like myself, have been using this clicker to actually go through flashcards a little bit faster. I know it seems like really silly because you can just use Anki regularly and just tap keys on your keyboard to make the next flashcard go. But if you're doing that for over hundreds of cards in a day, it might get kind of mundane or uncomfortable to like keep pressing your keyboard at sort of a weird angle. So what me and a lot of my classmates have now are, they use these clickers. Well, a lot of them actually sometimes use their Xbox or PlayStation controllers to connect to their computers, but other students have been using these little clickers, and what they'll do is they'll customize the buttons to match sort of their study habits. And as they're going through flashcards, they just kind of sit, lounge. I sometimes toss my arm behind my head or just do whatever. Some people lie down on the couches or their beds and just put their computer screens super far away and they just click away. So if you're ever in the library with a bunch of medical students, you're likely going to hear like a few students clicking away, and it sounds incredibly annoying, but this is something I use to get through my flashcards a little bit more easily. If you're a person who plans on using Anki, or you're a person who's experimented using Anki flashcards, maybe look into getting one of these clickers. A lot of my classmates who didn't have a clicker at the beginning of last year have recently bought clickers this year just because they have really gotten into the habit of using flashcards while they were studying, and the clickers just help a little bit. So the reason I use flashcards is because in medical school you learn like so much between all the sciences, with the pharmacology, physiology, anatomy. It's just really helpful to have that recall. But that's just kind of the foundational knowledge that you have to build. Another component of medical school has been learning how to speak and communicate in the clinic, and part of that is learning to take a really good history and making sure that when you're talking to a patient, you're collecting all the pertinent information that you need. I remember during my first session learning how to interview a patient. Even though we used fake patients in the beginning, it is so overwhelming because you have to go through a person's chief complaint, a history of their present illness, going through the past medical history, going through the past surgical history, going through the medication list, seeing they have allergies, going through their social history, going through their family history, going through a review of systems, and also checking in with their health habits. A really simple tool that one of my friends recommended to me early on last year was getting a little book. I found this one, and it has basically most things that you would include in an interview. Basically, each page has a blank version of a history and physical exam format that you can fill out as you're going through interviews. Now, I assume every school teaches history taking and physical exams a little bit differently, and while this is a really good format, a really good template for you to use, make sure you're still remembering to include the information that your school teaches. For example, there's one section in here called health-related behaviors, which lists tobacco, alcohol, drugs, sexual activity, and exercise, but doesn't include diet. And for my school, they really emphasize asking people about their diets. And so just make sure you keep that in mind if you do get one of these. I really think it is super helpful for a beginning medical student to kind of get in that framework of, what order and the questions am I going to ask, looking at what a typical note looks like and how you kind of structure that conversation. I've used this not only for when I'm actively taking history or conducting a physical examination, but I've also used this for when we're going through cases, and let's say they have a case on the screen and it says 70-year-old male comes in with a headache with a past medical history of hypertension. I would jot that information down, age, gender of the patient, their chief complaint is at the top, and history of the present illness. Like, not even just for history taking, but when I'm going through cases in class, I can jot down the information and have it on hand. I know some people want to write it down on their iPads or the computers, but again, this is very helpful in the beginning of kind of structuring that conversation and going through that path of the chief complaint, history, present illness, past medical history, all the way down the list into your family and social history. That being said, I have since phased out of using this. I've used this enough times and I've practiced enough in school that I generally don't need to look at one of these sheets to kind of get all the information. That being said, I think my interview skills have been getting a little rusty in the last couple months, so I might actually start using this again. I still have some blank pages left. But yeah, especially for your first year in medical school, once you start learning to work with patients, I recommend something like this, especially if you're having difficulty with remembering each component of the history. So far, we've gone through something that helps me with recalling sort of the scientific knowledge that we need in school. I went over something that helped me with the history taking and actually communicating with patients. I guess something that's a little bit more practical and something that I got during my first year was a little suture kit. Now, as you can see, I've kind of stopped using it after a while. I need to get back into practice with it and see if it'll focus. I don't think it's going to focus. I've asked several people who are a little bit older in medical school and asked them if this really replicates skin, and despite whatever plastic or whatever silicone they use to make these, it's not going to completely simulate real life skin, but this is really helpful for kind of learning the basics of suturing and practicing and just getting used to sort of some of the tools that you use in procedural cases. Actually, you don't really see in here, I have some hidden sutures, so I actually got some good practice in. It's not focusing. Anyway, I got this suture kit with this little fake skin pad, and it came with also some sets of tools, including Adson forceps, needle driver, hemostat, suture scissors, and actually a little scalpel handle that I haven't used yet. Obviously, this is a little bit better for people who are considering surgical specialties or something more procedural, or if you want to just get used to using these tools and getting ready for your surgery rotations. That being said, I am a second-year medical student and I have not started my clerkships yet, but I have shadowed some surgeons and I was able to scrub in a few procedures, and it was really useful just to get used to some of these tools and handling them so that if I am able to help out in the OR, I will have more familiarity with some of the tools that are in there. That being said, these 4 or 5 tools are not going to be all you need to know going into an OR. So if you are going to go strato surgery, make sure you look up some of the common tools that are used in a surgical procedure. So those are some of the medical school specific things that I used to really help me get through my first year of medical school. The last couple things I want to mention are not very medical school specific and are just helpful in terms of my productivity. Very silly things. For example, one thing is just a nice pair of noise canceling headphones. Now, these are the headphones that came with my computer when I bought my computer, and they just so happen to have a noise canceling feature, but it's super helpful. Me, I can't sit still. I do like to go study at the library, but oftentimes you're going to see me going to a coffee shop just because I like a change in scenery every now and then. I like going to coffee shops to study, and if you're a person who likes to listen to music, these are really helpful. But if you're like me and you're sometimes behind on watching your lectures and sometimes depend on watching the lecture recordings after class, these are really helpful, especially if you're on the go and you're at a loud coffee shop or a noisy coffee shop and you really like the ambiance, but you really need to focus on watching the lectures and watching the recordings. Having noise canceling headphones help block out the noise and help you focus on the professor or whoever is speaking during the lecture. And so I found these very helpful. I didn't discover these until sort of middle of first year of medical school, just because I had these sitting in my closet unopened and I realized my other headphones just weren't cutting it, and these were just really helpful in terms of helping me focus. So yeah. And so one of the last things, again, not a medical school specific item, but something that I found super helpful was actually having a portable monitor. As you can see, I've been looking off to the side to look at this outline of things that I was going to talk about today. But this is a portable monitor. I wish it were wireless, but it's not. But it is a plug and play portable monitor by Asus that I sometimes carry with me when I need to be more productive. This is the little stand that it comes with, and it also doubles as a cover. Yeah, so basically like this. And so I found this super helpful. I actually got this before medical school, but I found it super helpful. It was during the pandemic when everybody was working from home, and I was getting my master's degree and I was working research at the time. And so it just really doubled my productivity having a second screen to kind of look at things. It was actually really helpful in medical school because if you're in medical school, you're likely going to do some form of research or some form of extracurricular that is outside of your basic schoolwork. And this summer I was working on research, and I would have multiple virtual desktops open because we had different softwares that we needed to open, and just because of different permissions issues, I had to have one window open that actually had pictures of brains that I was reviewing, another window open with the health records that I was reviewing, and then another window with the data collection software that we were using. It was just really helpful to have multiple screens open. Now, I don't take that with me everywhere because I would look really obnoxious if I had my laptop and a second dual monitor with me at all times, but there are times that I've taken it to the library or I've taken it to the coffee shop because I had a project that I would really help if I had two screens open, and that just like doubled my productivity. I would recommend getting one if you're a person who works from home a lot, or if you're in a school setting where you're doing a lot of research or writing a lot of papers, or just have some scenario where you need two screens. I like the portability of it because, again, I'm not a person that likes to sit still and I like to go out to coffee shops. So that has really helped me with my productivity. So again, my name is Tony Chang. I am just here trying to help people get into medical school, trying to help share my experience in medical school, and hopefully become a really good doctor in the end of it. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if there are some things that you think are just really unnecessary, or let me know if there are some things that you would rather use instead. So signing off, this is Tony Chang, MS2.